Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm joined, as ever, by my colleague and co-host and Birmingham City fanatic, Alex Dicken. But the observant amongst you will obviously notice two far more famous and celebrated people have also joined us for what is a year in review, 2025 in review. Richard Wilford from talkSPORT and Ian Danter from talkSPORT. Thank you very much for joining us, both of you, and hello, Alex.
Cheers, Brian.
Right, yeah, as I said at the top, we are going to be going through 2025, picking out some of our highlights, lowlights, and most memorable bits. We are going to attempt to summarise 2025 in 3 words. As I said, pick out the highlight, the best player, best transfer. Just lost the list there momentarily, smooth as ever. Best interview, favourite opposition manager or player, biggest regret, and our one wish for 2026. So, without further ado, let's start at the hardest and try and sum up 2025 in 3 words. Alex Dicken, let's have your 3 words, please.
Mine were in the mix. I didn't really want to dwell on last season too much because, promotion was a formality really from about February onwards. So I've looked more at this season. It's been a bit of an indifferent start, but Blues are, despite recent results, in the mix for the playoff place, in the mix for promotion. So that's what I've gone with.
Still upwardly mobile. And that's both on and off the pitch at the moment. Still taking steps in the right direction because this is the best looking championship squad that Blues have had in more than a decade.
Right. Okay. Dance, do you want to do yours, or do you need more thinking time?
No. I'll go with an exciting future, given what we saw unveiled just the other week there at the Peaky Blinders Studios. What's been promised to Birmingham fans, what the ambitions are, short, medium, and long term, can leave you nothing but excited for the future.
Yeah. I'm going to go with On the Road, not because of my passion for Jack Kerouac material, but similarly for what the guys have said there in terms of Blues are definitely on the right path. The club is moving in the right direction. Bit of debate as to how quickly the team are getting there this season, but as Alex said, they are in the mix, and as the Richard and Ian both suggested, it is about much more than just a result of a football match on a Saturday, and things do seem to be progressing very nicely along that road. Let's come on to the highlight of 2025. Now, it can be on pitch, off the field. Alex, hopefully you're not going to refer to the Christmas quiz as your highlight. What's been your favourite moment of the last 12 months, Alex?
There's one on pitch and one off pitch for me. On pitch would be the Newcastle game because I think as a spectacle it was just fantastic to be there that night. And Blues more than held their own against a Premier League team that at the time were competing for European spots and ended up finishing the Champions League places. And off the pitch, I mean, you can't really look any further than the unveiling of the powerhouse. I'm not so sure on the name still, but to be there that day and see the design and kind of the excitement amongst supporters that has followed was fantastic.
Yeah, before I come to you two, we are all chimney heads, are we?
We're
Richard, Alex,
chimney boys. Yeah.
Richard, sorry, go on, Dance.
Well, I was thinking my dad and my granddad would have loved to have seen that design, particularly my granddad. It's nice that people are catching up with why it's been done, because people looked at chimneys. People outside Birmingham, not Birmingham fans, were curious what on earth are they doing with chimneys, not knowing about the heritage of the area and everything. So, but yeah, I know that my old man and my granddad would have just loved that design, and it's such a shame they're not around to see it.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that a lot of people judged it on one photo that just doesn't do the scale of it justice. It's once you see the size of the chimneys, what's inside the big chimneys, and the fact that it does mean so much to the local area. And it is going to be something unique. It's going to be a talking point. And I think any great project like that should be different and should be a little bit challenging. And I think everybody would be very proud of it once it's built.
Yeah, talking point, challenging. Some say it's divisive. I'm absolutely there. Like many people, I think I saw it and thought, oh, right, okay. And then as you think about it some more, it's there to generate interactions, isn't it? You know, for want of a better phrase. So yeah, highlight of 2025, Richard.
I think promotion at Peterborough. It was a very memorable night. It wasn't a full strength side even that night. Christian Bielik came back in for that game at a point in the season where he was no longer getting regular football. And I think it was very meaningful that somebody who had really suffered at Blues was there for the day that they went back, because I think that kind of rounded off his journey as much as anything else. And off the field, it's just seeing the ground full all the time this season. You know, I know there's been the odd game where there's a few seats. Now we're getting towards Christmas and there's been a lot of games. But the atmosphere and the slow keep right on before kickoff, it is spine-tingling stuff, and it's a real sign of the growth of the club again.
Yeah, indeed. Dance?
Well, you know, I've been limited in the amount of times I've been able to watch Birmingham live compared to you three guys, but the Bradford semi-final sticks out for me as a great night for emotion. Lyndon scoring that late header and what it meant, that there was so little time for Bradford to come back. That was a lovely moment. Also, the win at Blackburn, I was there for that. So again, Lyndon wins it late. And the limbs in the Darwin end were just magnificent to observe from my position in the commentary box. And I'll also mention, not to wish to be too maudlin about this, but the way my now late brother was looked after by the club at the Barnsley game. I was so pleased because my brother passed away in September, but whilst he was poorly, I managed to get him a day at St Andrews for the Barnsley game. That just happened to be the game I picked, and of course what a game it was for him to witness. And I know that the club and the staff there looked after him so wonderfully that day, and I was so appreciative of that.
Dance, that is you win. You've trumped us all. I feel quite trite coming with anything now about.
That wasn't the intention.
No, I know. Sympathies for yourself and your brother is all I can say to that. Dance, thanks for sharing that with us. Really special moment. I think I'm going to go on field for mine, and I think when journalists sit in a press box, you know, any sign of even more than passing interest tends to be frowned upon. You're supposed to be cold and you're supposed to be objective, and you're supposed to sort of watch what's happening on the field, then knowingly and dispassionately record it on your laptop or on your notepad or whatever. But I have to say, my composure slipped when the ball left Tomoki Iwata's foot against Newcastle. I remember releasing a small yelp and standing up when the ball hit the back of the net. I
can testify to that.
Yeah, I did. The crown of composure, it slipped. It really did. It was breathtaking. And you know, given the travails that we've all covered, but at Birmingham City, for a goal of that quality. In front of that audience, not just in the ground, but obviously on TV and against those opponents as well. You know, it was a very cathartic moment. So, yeah, that was it for me. Best player of 2025. Dance, do you want to start us with this one?
Okay. Well, I think at times Jay's obviously grabbed the headlines for the goals that he's got and the sheer industry that he's put in. I think Iwata's shown himself to be very versatile. Certainly some of those games he played at right back in extremis were impressive, to go with his performances in midfield. And then you've got somebody like Patrick Roberts and Damari Gray, you know, players who've come in this summer and already clearly made an impact with the way that they're contributing either assists or goals. But it's hard to look past Jay for somebody right at the arrowhead and scoring the goals he has. So I'll probably stick with Jay.
Yeah, indeed. I suspect, I'm pretty sure me and Alex are going to go with the same person here. So before we do that, we'll let Richard have his go. And I wouldn't be surprised if Richard comes up with the same answer as well. Go on.
Well, yeah, because I think I will ultimately. I mean, obviously, Damari is the star of this season, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, his return home has gone even better than we could have imagined. There are players who've been wonderfully consistent all year. Alex Cochrane has done tremendously. I know we won't going to mention on this podcast if I don't do it. Also, I think Keshi Anderson had a really, really good year. Was instrumental. But, of course, the correct answer... This is not subjective, this question. The correct answer is Christoph Clara again and again and again and again and again, because he has been the most magnificent leader through this year, even when he was only an unofficial leader. But it has to surely be Clara.
Did you know, Richard, that going into the Sheffield United game just before Christmas, Clara had won 110 championship headers?
It's actually 109, Brian.
Okay, right. Okay.
It's amazing. I tell you what, Brian, now I think there is one that Alex missed. I think it is 110. It is. Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah. Alex, do you agree with Richard? Is the answer Christoph Clara?
Yeah, I mean, I can see where Dance is coming from as well, to be fair, because I think Stansfield, 18 goals this calendar year, has been excellent this season, nine goals, 8 in the championship. And he's added assists, and he's also had to play number 10 for the vast majority of this season as well, because no one else has been able to do what Chris Davies wants in that position. But yeah, Clara is the answer for me. He's been exceptional player of the year last year. He's probably just about on course player of the year so far this season as well. Yeah,
there's no point me doubling down. It is Clara for me. And I do recognise the burden that Jay carries. Obviously, of all the Birmingham players that get any stick in matches at home from the away fans or away, it's always Jay, isn't it? It's always Jay that gets the what a waste of money chance and Pensfield and all this sort of thing. So Jay has carried a heavy burden, but yeah, Clara's headed it away, hasn't he? Whatever heavy burdens come his way. So yeah, Clara
109 times, Brian, 109 times.
Yeah, indeed.
And the only fully functioning centre back currently in the club, arguably.
Right. Okay. This is supposed to be it.
Well, yeah, prove me wrong.
Yeah. Okay. I'm a little bit scolded because, as I said, we were recording this after the draw with who was it on Saturday? Charlton on Saturday, and I was a little bit critical on Phil Neumann on social media and got slapped down a little bit. So I'm reining my criticism of Neumann in a little bit, but it would be difficult to paint Robinson and Cashin's season as anything other than not very positive so far. So yes, Richard, I accept that point. Best transfer of 2025. So I will go through the ones that obviously that includes the January transfer window, which brought us Grant Hanley, Lee Mung-jae and Kieran Dowell. And over the summer window, Damari Gray, Brighter Say, Samuel Kyogo, Kanya Fujimoto, Marvin Duksh, Jack Robinson, James Beadle, Tommy Doyle, Erin Cashin, Lewis Kumasan. I nearly said Jason Kumasan, and Patrick Roberts. Which of those leaps out at you, Alex?
I think we're all probably going for the same player here. I would say Damari Gray. I think there's a special mention for Kieran Dowell because last season he came in at a point where Blues were already quite strong and gave them something extra in the final 4 or 5 months of the season. Got 5 goals, 5 assists as well, which very good numbers. But Gray has been maybe not so much at the start of the season. I felt like he was probably, outshone a little bit by Roberts to begin with. But in the last month, I think Damari Gray has been absolutely exceptional. In the last, few games away where Blues haven't been particularly good, Damari Gray has been the guy carrying them and taking on the mantle. And for me, he is their signing of the summer. Although there are probably 2 others I could argue a little bit for as well. But Gray stands out for me.
Rich?
Yeah, and I think here this is a lot more difficult to call. I think that Damari has been the star of the season so far. So, yeah, a great signing. But he was always likely to be a good signing. Nice age, 29, total commitment. The club was sold to him really well by Chris Davies. Patrick Roberts, like Damari Gray, another great pro. So really enjoyed seeing those 2 play. So I'll just throw Tommy Doyle into the mix. He took sort of 7 or 8 weeks to maybe get the idea of what Chris Davies wants him to do. Chris admits that he's also moved a little bit towards Tommy Doyle in terms of building the side a little bit like around what Tommy Doyle can do. But he has been the driving force behind the good performances in the last couple of months. He was a bit exhausted, I think, in the last week or 2. But I think he's been a very, very good pickup.
Yeah, indeed. Dance?
Well, yeah, I was amazed that Wolves let Doyle go out on loan anyway. Never mind that we were lucky enough to get him. And you could probably say the same with Patrick Roberts. I think he might feel a little aggrieved that Sunderland didn't want to give him a chance at Premier League level, but then they've barely given any of that promotion squad a chance at Premier League level, and I guess they've been proven right with the way that they're performing, Sunderland. Dimmy's grown into the season, quite right what Richard says there. It just a couple of weeks to adjust, and he's now perfectly attuned to what's required. But I'll say I'll go with Roberts just to be a little bit different, because I think his, all the Sunderland fans that I saw messaging me after, on socials, were all sorry to see him go. All uniformly 100% unhappy that he was leaving the club, and I think that speaks volumes for what sort of player and character he is and what he's brought to us.
Yeah, indeed. I would go with Dimmy as well, on the basis that if you consider Coventry City to have the best 11 in the division, I wonder how many Blues players get into Coventry's side. Dimmy, with respect to Sakamoto and whoever's playing on the left side, it's been Hadji Wright, or it's been
Ephraim Mason Clark as well.
Ephraim Mason Clark, or they've also had Brandon Thomas Asante playing out there. Dimmy's a natural winger that I think would thrive in that side. So yeah, again, and I'm a sucker for a homecoming. I can't lie. Rich and I we've all seen Dimmy play lots and lots and lots as a young man. I don't think anyone really begrudged him going when he had his opportunity, albeit in difficult financial circumstances for the club. It's nice to see. It's great to see him back. And what's really heartwarming is how much it clearly means to him as well.
Yes.
Well, we should address the elephant in the room, because Ian's too modest to say it, but people will be curious about where he is at the moment. He is currently recording his new series for TV, which is exciting for you, Ian. It's called Danter's Dashcam Dandies. It's going to be on Watch and Watch Plus One from spring 2026, I'm told. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be the number one show in the Norfolk area.
You've sent us down a partridge cul-de-sac there, Dan. Thanks for that.
Always happy to go down a partridge cul-de-sac.
Yeah, clearly. Favourite interview was 2025. Dan, do you want to take this first? So either one you've done, doesn't have to be Blues related. If something else has leapt out on your travels around the country, or it could be one you've listened to. An open goal here for you, mate.
I've not had many Blues interviews to do in 2025. I remember interviewing Jay late last year when he came with Fulham and scored and played possum beautifully, if you already knew that 48 hours later he'd be signing for us. But despite our question, I think Richard was there with me at the time, he gave no indication that there was a signing on the cards and that he'd be staying at Fulham. I like doing interviews with managers where I feel like I've learned something when I come away from those interviews. And two of those that stand out are Paul Heckingbottom at Sheffield United. Was at Sheffield, now at Preston, of course. And a man who's much maligned at the moment, it would appear, in Thomas Frank at Tottenham Hotspur. I always listen to him, what he has to say, and feel like I'm being educated. But it's clearly not working for him at the moment. But those are two guys that stick out to me from the people I speak to.
Yeah, indeed. I like listening. I've always liked listening to Thomas Frank. When he's come to St Andrews with Brentford, he's an intelligent and an articulate guy who doesn't just slip into the sort of football lexicon or group think that often you get from a lot of managers in post-match press conferences. Richard, you've done tons of players and tons of managers this year, more than you probably care to remember.
Yeah, too many. And actually the players and managers would agree, far too many. But it's hard for me not to applaud Chris Davis for the fact that at the start of each season, he's come in and he's spent an hour with me in this building and he's answered all the questions that fans would want to hear him answer. And he answers them like we're all grown-ups too. He's one of those very rare football managers who will spell out exactly what he wants to do, how he's going to do it. He doesn't conceal anything. He's very, very open. And I think that's really impressive. And for me, that reflects a man who knows what he's doing. And yeah, there are things that he's got to improve at the moment. He'll want to get the away form sorted. He will want to get the team up into the top 6 if he can this season. But there's a guy who knows what he's doing and he's learning in the job and he's happy to be honest with us. And I think Chris's honesty is to be applauded.
Yeah, I think we've all been in press conferences or interviewed managers where they've given us a sort of, you've asked a tactical or a formation question or something like that, and they've given us a patronising pat on the head. Don't worry, lad, you wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, whether you agree with all of Chris's answers, is up to you and your starting point. But I agree. You certainly don't sit there thinking, I better not ask him this because I'm afraid of the reaction. Yeah. He'll take everything on the chin and give a considered response. He's very engaged. And even the last pre-match press conference, I remember talking to Alex about some of the quality of the answers he was giving Alex, just in connection with, fairly straightforward questions about Aaron Cashin or Beadle or something like that. And yeah, it's always engaging, I think. Alex, go on.
Yeah. I just to add, you always feel like Chris is speaking to the audience and like kind of, perfectly happy to get his message across and explain why he's doing things, which, like you say, some managers aren't. Jay Stansfield pre-Wembley for me was pretty good. It's kind of an emotional interview, about going up, playing at Wembley and emulating his dad, which is a nice interview. For different reasons, Elliot Posmer, we had him, the architect from Heatherwick, on here recently, and that, as Dance was mentioning, enjoying interviews where he feels like it's a bit of an education. That was an education for me because I have absolutely no insight or knowledge on architecture and how it all works. So to find out kind of why they were doing things, pretty interesting. And just a mention of Alfie on Samsted as well. Speaking to him, I think it was March or February, and he just kind of, he spent the whole interview getting around questions about whether he'd become a Blues player. And then as he walked out the door, he said, "Oh, it's all done. I'm going to become a Birmingham City player in thingy," which was fantastic and seemed to rattle the media man stood next to him, which I quite enjoyed. So that one, yeah, as well.
What's the worst that can happen? He's not going to get chosen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've bored people about how pleasantly surprised I was with Ben Davies post Shrewsbury. Went in there with very low expectations as a centre back. Him, not me. Who'd known he'd avoided coming into the press room and done interviews, but he was very, very engaging. Richard was with me when Christian Bielik came out of the tunnel post match at the side of on the touchline at Peterborough. And turned to us and said, "Would you two like an interview?" And you never look a Bielik gift horse in the mouth when it comes to an interview. I enjoyed speaking to Tom Wagner actually after the Wembley defeat. He was very defiant and very buoyant. And I think whenever any of us have spoken to Wagner, you kind of get swept along and you kind of believe him, don't you? And I end up wanting to run through the nearest brick wall for him. So that was positive. But I think the one that will stick with me this year will be. And again, Richard Hitt was here for that. Was Stephen Knight at Digbeth Lock after the stadium reveal. We chanced our arm to see if Stephen would give us a few extra moments separately, which he did. And I think what stuck out for me most was obviously he's very articulate and very thoughtful, but just his enthusiasm and. He was very professional, and clearly he'd been involved in the planning process. But the boyhood Blues fan was still in there, he didn't quite tap us on the arm and say, "Hey, it's happening to my football club," But there was an element of that as well, wasn't there, Richard?
The fascinating thing with Stephen Knight, because I've interviewed him on breakfast shows and things about some of his other projects, and he's not a brilliant interview when he's talking about Peaky Blinders. Yeah. He's actually quite a shy man. But he's so passionate about Blues. And just before the game at Wembley against Peterborough, he was at the BBC doing a brief talk. And everybody was told, "Oh, he's not doing any interviews. No interviews. And my colleague Daz Hale was in. I said, "Go up to him and say, I just want to talk about Blues." And he gave 3.5 brilliant minutes about what Blues meant to him. And what going to Wembley meant to him. And it was very reminiscent of that. He really cares. He's a true fan and he's quite emotional. And for him, the idea that there's going to be an area where kids can go and play on pitches next to the training pitches, that the whole idea of that ball games are allowed, the whole jumpers for goalpost thing, that really resonates with him, doesn't it?
It really does. And I think, coming from Birmingham, growing up as a Birmingham City fan, what can be better than not just seeing your work as a professional storyteller, come to life on screen? His ambitions and hopes from Birmingham City are going to come into existence in bricks and concrete and the infrastructure of the city. But that blows my mind. So,
and he's already done that. He's already done that to an extent with where the studios are based, where he made sure Digbeth Lock actually, was constructed. So he's right in the heart of that area that he knows and we all know needs love and regeneration. And so there's a sense, I'm sure, a huge swell of pride in him to know that everything that's going to go on around him is just going to benefit where he's, pitched his tent, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pleased, and when I've successfully constructed a chest of drawers from IKEA, this bloke's going to play an instrumental part in a sports quarter in a city. So yeah, indeed. Change it up a little bit. Favorite opposition player or manager? Again, very open brief on this one. Can be someone you've interviewed, or just someone you've watched play, or maybe neither, just someone that's caught your eye. Alex, let's go for you for that one.
You know what? I went through all the managers and couldn't pick one. We didn't get access to many of the managers in League One last season because they often did pitch side interviews rather than actually coming into the press conference room. But none really stood out to me. In this season, I was looking at the ones Blues have come up against, and none have massively stood out to me. Players wise, I can say Leo Cienza of Southampton. I thought he was fantastic in that game the other week, and although I think he's only got 3 goals, 1 assist at the time of recording from 12 or 13 games, I just think he looks a cut above the other forwards that I've seen so far in this league. The way he carved through Blues in that opening 25 minutes, I thought was exceptional, and he had the big say in the second half to set up the game clinching 3rd goal with a shot that James Beadle could only parry to Adam Armstrong. So he, as a ball carrier, as a technician, just really stood out to me.
Richard?
If there's one opposition player that I would sign now if I was Blues, and they won't be able to get hold of him, but they played against this season, who would fit an obvious need in the team. I'm not looking very far down the road.
Okay, you're not going to steal my answer. Go on.
No, it'd be Ona Hegeba. I think he's absolutely... His ceiling is so high. He's suddenly worked out what he's going to do in the Championship. He's scoring goals, he's making goals, he's linking, he's bruising centre-backs. Albion have got an absolute gem in Ona Hegeba, and he would be perfect for what Blues need at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, indeed. Dance?
Well, aside from Heckingbottom, who I mentioned earlier, having interviewed him as a manager a couple of times this season from a Preston point of view, and like what I heard, players-wise, Jack Rodoni at Coventry has trained on hugely under Frank Lampard. You can see it. I think Frank's almost been like a horse whisperer to him. He just seems to have developed his game even further to what I saw when he was at Huddersfield. And I wasn't there for the Watford game, but I was watching at home, and I was terrified about when Chak Fatadze was going to be brought on, because I thought as soon as they bring him on, the game's going to change. And boom, it did, because I'm astonished that he's still there, Chak Fatadze at Watford. I think he's a tremendous midfield player. He was brilliant at the Euros as well for Georgia. So he's a player I'd love to have in my squad. Indeed,
yeah. Watford had a couple actually, didn't they, that you'd happily pluck and think, yeah, we'll have those. I'm going to go with Gus Hamer. Inexplicably misallocated this season, at the start of this season, by Ruben Sayers at Sheffield United, been brought back into the fold by Chris Wilder, and I just think, he's I was going to say Barry Bannon, Waitrose Barry Bannon, but he's so much better than that. His understanding and his ability of the game, ability to carry the ball, ability to pick a pass, ability to find the back of the net, albeit he missed a decent chance on Saturday. I think I'd just love to see him in Birmingham City shirt, and it won't happen because his next move away from Sheffield United will either be into the Premier League with Sheffield United, or it will be to a Premier League club or a Champions League club. I think if he's got enough runway left in his career, so he's not the youngest of players. But yeah, Gus Hamer is someone I always enjoy watching. Bring us on to the biggest regret of 2025.
Wembley.
You what?
Wembley.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Next.
Yeah.
Anyone got anything else other than the?
Alfie May not getting half a season in the Championship. I would have loved to have seen Alfie May playing this season. It would have cost us nothing to retain because he was already there, and he's a better striker than Kyogo.
That's a big claim, isn't it?
That is a hot take.
Yeah.
Is it? Have you not watched him this season? Kyogo is so far off it. I mean, he's so far off it.
Yes. Kyogo is underperforming his XG. Let's put it that way.
Who would you want off the bench for the last 20 minutes? Alfie May or Kyogo?
Lucas Djukovic, but yeah, okay.
You can say Harry Kane if you like, but of those two,
yeah, that is a good question. I suppose I fell into the narrative of almost Alfie. That Alfie perpetuated was, if he does get to the Championship, he's not going to be good enough to play a part. I suppose it would be interesting to see Alfie in the Championship. Why not? Yeah. And we know he's a he's a solid citizen if he's not starting every game, don't we? Yeah. Alex, anything to add on that?
No, with Alfie, I think he'd probably be quite happy to have been, played the cheerleader role and only played 5-10 minutes here and there for Blues this season. So it's a shame that didn't happen. Kyogo, he does cause problems. He can press. He's probably physically a better player than Alfie May. But again, there's no point being that player if when you get the chances you miss the target or barely work the goalkeeper.
Alex, though, we speak about Kyogo a lot, and I say, yeah, he could score 10 goals in the second half of the season. He could suddenly flourish when one goes in. It's just with each passing week, it looks less likely.
No, I agree, but I think people are losing faith in him now, aren't they? Yeah. To move on. To move on, mine would be Ben Davies. I think is an obvious one. If you're looking at personnel that Blues probably should have brought in or brought back in the summer, to not sign Ben Davies, and yes, people will say, he's barely played for Oxford. That's fine. He was playing for Birmingham City and he was doing just fine in the system that Chris Davies had. To go and sign two left footers in Aaron Cashin and Jack Robinson, who have both been very poor, missing out on Ben Davies and not signing Ben Davies was a mistake for me.
I went straight for the finishing line here. Yeah, I went for Wembley as well. It was lovely to spend that much time with you that day, Alex. But it wasn't objective achieved, was it? And I think what was disappointing about it was that everyone believed the press beforehand, didn't they? That it was just going to be a bit of a cakewalk, and then, yeah.
Well, what you had that day was the day where all Birmingham's players were rating 5 or 6, and let's be fair, Peterborough's players all rated 9 or 10. They just had one of those days, the lot of them, where they were just completely on it, and credit to them for that. And we were just half a yard off, and it showed.
Indeed. Let's look at
two great goals as well. I was talking to Jed Steer about it the other week. He said they were great goals. He said the other big bonus we had is we played you on Tuesday, and he says that actually helped us because we knew exactly what we needed to do in the game on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And even then, both goals were worldies, weren't they?
Yeah,
so it was the fact Blues never got started. Let's move on to 2026. One wish for 2026, Richard. Thoughts?
A striker. I want a striker, please. They desperately need to sharpen up. Give Jay more help. Marvin Duksh is not the answer for 90 minutes a game every game, and yet he's got some talent. His mobility is okay. Away from home, he disappears. They need to upgrade the striker because I think they are very close to getting wins away from home. They just need to be sharper up front and be able to hold the ball. The fact they can't hold the ball up front away from home is the biggest issue they've got to deal with at the moment.
Dance, wish for 2026.
A smart transfer window next month. That's just sort of going on from what Richard's saying there about the need for a striker, because let's face it, we are, as you've already suggested, in the mix. And if it takes a couple of off-the-peg quality players to add to the squad to get us into a playoff place, then go for it. And if FFP allows, I don't know what the financial situation is, what we can do, what we can't. Obviously, there's injuries and lack of form for certain players. Would Cashin go back to Brighton? Would Beadle go back to Brighton? Don't know. And what does that free up? But my wish is for a clever, smart transfer window that gives us the best chance.
Alex?
We shouldn't underestimate the importance of this transfer window, really, because all the other windows that Chris Davies has had so far, I think there's been room for error, margin for error, whereas in this one there isn't. I don't think the Championship has ever been, so kind of open for Blues to go and reach the playoffs. There's a bunch of teams there this year that could quite easily end up in the playoffs that probably in years gone by would have been, 15th, 16th, and would have been nowhere near it. To get a team like Preston, I wasn't massively impressed by them when Blues played them early this season. They're really riding high now because they've been able to put together some results. So it's there for Blues, and it's there for them also if they can sort out their away form, which would be my wish for 2026. The away form first half of the season has been pretty poor, if not dire, to only get 2 wins from the games they've had. They've had some tough away games, yes, but some of the performances, particularly against QPR, when you think back to Stoke, they didn't make them work anywhere near hard enough for a victory. Same at Leicester City, same at Bristol City. So if they can sort that out and, sort of maintain that home form, I know it's going to drop off a little bit eventually, then they're in with every chance of finishing inside the playoffs.
I'm going to go off the field here and... planning legislation and planning committees aside, hopefully they can get what they need to do approved, and we see a spade in the ground at some point in 2026 for what, as I've said earlier, is going to be a development that doesn't just provide Birmingham City with a stadium, it shapes the city of Birmingham and the lived experience for people who they need a bit of help in that area. And I think this really the sports quarter could be will be a transformational development, both in the city and the lives of its people. So if we can take a major step forward and jump through the administrative hoops that need to be jumped through next season, and as I say, stick a spade in the ground, that would be absolutely fantastic. That would be a good year for me. Chaps, I want to thank you all for your own time. Any other business, Alex? Richard,
no, I think
Ian?
we're good.
No?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your time. Ian, thank you for your time. Richard, thank you for yours. Alex, thanks as well. All that remains from us is to wish you a very happy new year and a big keep right on from all 4 of us.